Texas Rangers win the World Series, I will buy a Texas Rangers hat, and I will wear it on the podcast for
like
the segment.
World Series championship?
Maybe not a World Series championship hat, but at least like a Rangers
Just
hat
a Rangers
to signify my respect.
Yeah.
For the Texas, maybe a cowboy hat. Maybe I'll get it because it's Texas. Texas cowboy
Tip
hat.
of the cap. Welcome back. It is episode 8 of the InsiDe Sports podcast. My name is Cole Daly. This is Joey. It's not Joey to my left, and I'm not Cole Daly. And Cole Daly's not even here this week.
No.
That's funny. Cole Daly is out sick this week. He forgot to take his medicine. So
Yes.
we are going to be doing this without him. We're going to be kind of reporting on what he would have said theoretically
Yes.
if he was on this podcast.
Yes.
And I guess we could think of him as this whiteboard too in another sense. So the show must go on, guys, without Cole Daly. Cole Daly is not the only voice of the InsiDe Sports podcast.
No.
It's us two. We're going to catch you up with some dogs at the vet. Starting out here with soccer, they came off of a loss against Valpo, 1-2, and then another loss against Murray State. They currently sit at 1-10-5 on the season. Still looking for that first conference win. Last in the Missouri Valley. We got our final game of the season on Thursday. Hopefully, we can at least finish off with a win the way that we started off on the season at Missouri State, which seems like it's going to be a daunting task to finish off the year 10-1-5. My goodness.
Yeah.
And they're 5-0-3 in the conference. Jordan, we fought hard this week. Some tough, close losses. But what have you just thought about this whole season so far? I guess with soccer.
Yeah, it's kind of a new take on what we experienced the first few years of this program. And then obviously having last year where we won a bunch of extra games, made the conference tournament, and got knocked out in the first round. But it is another tough season. And thankfully, if you want to look for a positive, we finally had a season where there wasn't some sort of coaching controversy.
Yes.
And I'm sure for a lot of the girls, a lot of the new freshmen that came in, which there was a ton, having that sort of continuity is really going to help this team moving forward. And hopefully we are finally in a place where we can start to build a program. It's kind of from scratch almost because, again, with everything that's gone on, with a whole new class of freshmen this year, hopefully we get most of them to stay for their sophomore seasons, and I think they'll be really good too.
And you talk about stability a little bit. We had a little bit of instability at the beginning of the year, as we mentioned, with the goalie situation. We finally found that. So maybe this is just the year of finding our stability just in general with this team. Moving on to volleyball, they went 0-2 this week as well. So just not a good start, at least on the InsiDe Sports podcast, talking about SIU Sports. They lost in a sweep to Drake and in a sweep to Northern Iowa. They sit at 12-8 on the season, 4-5 in the Missouri Valley, which is a stark difference as to how the season started.
Yeah.
They have a road trip against Drake on Friday and then Northern Iowa on Saturday. We've been swept quite a bit lately, and that was not the case, at least early on. So we still got a little while left, but Jordan, as you've been calling some of these games, what have you noticed?
Yeah, I think our worst fears have been realized. I've said it a lot of times about a lot of SIU programs, but we have a feeling at the beginning of the season that this kind of stretch was going to come eventually. Even when we were 12-4, even when we were winning a bunch of these games, we talked about that last weekend at home versus Murray State and Belmont and how we needed to win at least one of those games, if not both, and we lost both of those. Go to Iowa to play Drake in Northern Iowa this week, and it was just never really a contest. I mean, we didn't score 20 points in any set we played. So I think we're at the point in the year where it's like you're not going to have to play those two teams anymore, but you are going to have to play some teams that have beaten you. Valparaiso is who we play coming up on Friday. They swept us earlier this season too. So you really can't catch a break in this conference, but you're going to have to start stacking some wins because – yeah, we're 4-5, but a couple more weekends like the ones we've had, and we might find ourselves just clawing for that conference tournament.
At least at this point, we just need to try to figure out a way to avoid a sweep. I mean, my goodness, these two teams, 2 sweeps in a row, you never want that to happen in general. And I think this is just a sign as to how tough it really is to play in the Valley, just in general, in all sports. So volleyball is no exception whatsoever, even though I still believe in this team and at the talent that
too.
we have, and I believe we can come back with this with Ed
I do
Allen
too.
and the talent we have, like we mentioned.
And the key in those games this weekend, Drake and Northern Iowa, again, they're two teams in the top 75 of the NCAA RPI. So they're really, really good anyway. It's going to be tough for any Missouri Valley Conference team to play up to that level. At the same time, we made so many errors this weekend. In the Drake game in particular, 24 errors to Drake's 7. Now, those aren't all service errors, but they did account for a good amount, a lot more than they should have in a 3-set match. So, again, these are just little things that you would think a young team would struggle with. But we're not a young team. We have a lot of veterans on this team that are really going to have to clean up their act if this team wants to start winning again.
Yeah, and hopefully a little bit of I don't know if I want to call it a break there, but a week between games might help us out a little bit here. So, and then talk about football. We had a pretty decent win against Murray State. The final score was 27-6, but in my opinion, it felt like a bigger blowout than that, the way that we performed. We are number 12 in the FCS polls at the moment. We raised 1 spot. We sit at 5-1, 2-1 in the conference. And we got homecoming this week against South Dakota State.
Oof.
Number 1 team in the country. 6-0, 3-0 in the conference. My goodness, that's just a daunting task in general. But, I mean, to come off of a loss against Youngstown State, how we had so much momentum going into that game.
Yep.
And just like the year before, as we mentioned earlier on this podcast, how that was a win that we really, really needed to keep our momentum going, and we just fell flat. It happened again this year, and I feel like it might do something to us. We knew we were supposed to win this Murray State game, and we did. The final score, like I said, doesn't really indicate how much of a blowout that is, but I feel like had we scored a lot more points, I guess, we would have felt a lot better because it would have felt like we demolished them.
Yeah.
Nick Baker finally broke the record against Murray State, which I just think is hilarious how we mentioned when was the last time he threw under 122 yards in Pee Wee football.
Yeah.
But anyways, the difference I think this year has been the defensive secondary with this team.
Oh, yeah.
They're no longer a liability.
Yeah.
And I think the age was starting to get to some of these guys last year. Now we have a bit younger of a couple of guys in there now. We are pretty decent at intercepting the ball, too, and creating some turnovers. We had some really timely turnovers against Murray State in the red zone. I think we had a goal line pick earlier in the game, and then a goal line fumble recovery, which was on 4th down, so it didn't matter if we actually recovered the ball. But regardless, we come in clutch at least against these teams that we know we're supposed to perform well against. I think it's just a matter of showing up against a really daunting team like South Dakota State. Jordan, do you think we're up to the task this week, considering it's homecoming week?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be one of the cooler environments in all the FCS this weekend, too. I mean, it's homecoming. It's going to be packed. I cannot wait to be at this game and see this team play. Bringing out, I think, some new uniforms as well, at least on the helmet, I believe so.
Yes.
Either way, it's going to be awesome. You mentioned the defense, especially you mentioned secondary, DJ Johnson, PJ Jules, Mark Davis, guys that have been balling. Absolutely balling this year. No matter, and even in the games where it's a lot closer than it should have been, like SEMO, or in a game against Youngstown State that we lost, they have still been playing really, really well. It's on the offense to gain that little consistency, give the defense a rest, because ultimately against Youngstown State, the defense, did they give up 31 points? Yeah, but it really wasn't their fault. They were on the field all the time. And so I expect this week, if we do get some sort of a rhythm on offense, which again, it's going to be tough against South Dakota State, but if we do, keep your foot on the gas, run up the score if you have to, because you're not going to get into a street fight with these guys. You just have to outscore them. I saw something the other day about South Dakota State that really surprised me. That might scare some SIU fans. So there's a writer for ESPN. Obviously, we're not affiliated. His name is Bill Connolly. And Bill Connolly is famous for making these S&P Plus rankings for college football, which is essentially just a model for ranking teams based on how they play and who they play against or whatever, right?
Okay.
South Dakota State, this week, he did a special edition where he ranked every single college football team in high major Division I, FCS,
I think I saw this.
Division 2, and Division 3. So it's like 600 teams, right? Or even 900 teams, maybe. Do you know where South Dakota State ranks?
I think I remember seeing it was like 35?
29.
29.
That means, and again, we'll have no way to prove this, but that technically means if you just use those rankings, South Dakota State is better than like 80% of the high major FBS teams, which is ridiculous. But I think that just goes to show how amazing they are, and they've got dudes upon dudes in the NFL. You mean Tucker Kraft, shout out to him,
my guy,
your guy, of course, on the Packers. But yeah, I mean they've started to reach what North Dakota State used to be, and they've fallen off themselves a little bit this year. They're 4-2 now. Obviously, they're still a good team. They'll probably make the playoffs still, but South Dakota State is really taking the reins of the FCS subdivision. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see if we can come out early and often, get a couple scores on the board, make them play from behind, get them out of their normal game.
Totally. And I think my key to the game, just personal, I think this will be the number one thing that we need to stop the run in general. They have the number 4 ranked rushing attack in the nation. This is just including the FCS, so I don't know where they would fall in a system like if you include the FBS,
right.
But I'm sure it'd be pretty impressive as well.
Yeah.
We have to force them to throw the ball early
100%.
Because they will take control of the clock if we let them run the ball early and often, and if they start succeeding against us. So that defensive line is going to be really key in this.
Yeah.
We need to pressure the quarterback, stop the run early and often. So this will be very exciting game. One of the most exciting games in recent memory.
Yeah.
For anybody
for sure.
in Saluki Nation, anybody as a Saluki fan should come out to this game.
Heck yeah.
That dog pound should be roaring pretty loudly.
Oh yeah. I think that what really is going to separate this game. Look, and I don't think this is blasphemous or outrageous to say, but we're probably, from a talent standpoint, outmanned a little bit. I mean, that's just how good they are, right?
It's just how it is.
It's going to take turnovers. You have to force turnovers. The defense is going to have to get a couple interceptions, a strip sack or two even. That's what it's going to take. And I'm not saying it can't happen because that's how good I think our defense is. But
Totally.
Can our offense sustain drives? Can they get touchdowns instead of field goals? Can they get field goals instead of punting and not turn the ball over themselves? And I trust, our offensive play calling and Nick Hill and Blake Rowland to put together a pretty solid game plan. Can the guys execute it? Can they make the plays when it's there?
Of course. And it's been a little bit since we really of course, we talked about Nick Baker. He broke the record this week, but it's been a little bit since we've seen him perform well, I'd say. It's a couple weeks, So
right.
I don't want to say a little bit like it's been a long time, but it would be very nice to see Nick Baker come out of this game not throwing an interception.
Definitely.
Throwing 200 yards or so. It'd be very nice to see that once again.
Yeah. And we all need beat-ups, too.
We all need beat-ups.
You know that promotion, right?
I do.
If you're in the area, that's even more reason to come to this game, because if Nick Baker throws over 300 yards, I think beat-ups is giving away, not sponsored, but beat-ups is giving away, free wings or something.
What is that called again? Throw,
I have no
throw
idea.
Something. Throw, I don't even know. Throw something is the beat-ups promotion. Anyways, I think we got some college picks coming up here. And this is a bit different because, of course, Cole Daly is the one who leads this, but I'm going to kind of hand it off to Jordan.
Yeah, so I will take the place of Cole for college football this week, and Joey will take the place of me. He's got some stats.
Oh, my goodness.
Handed to him by our stats and info department, a.k.a. me. You see the board. It's another great slate of college football. The deeper we get into conference play, the better and better these games are getting. Last week, Cole Daly went 3-1. He picked Washington to beat Oregon in what was one of the best games of the year. I don't know if you got a chance to see that or not, but Washington and Oregon are probably two top 10 teams in the country, both with NFL quarterbacks. Michael Penix Jr.
I have heard.
Made a couple incredible throws to his wide receiver, Rome Odunze, who is probably going to be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Rome Odunze, remember that name. But at the end of the game, Oregon, 4th and 3, they find a way to I don't know about you, but I hate the plays where it's normally either on 2-point conversion or 4th down and short yardage to go, where the quarterback will be in the shotgun and he'll just sprint to one side of the field.
Oh, that's awful.
And eliminate the whole other half. And And Oregon, all game they had been taking chances, but they went 0 for 3 on fourth down. I think they're the better team coming out of that, but they ended up losing. Cole also picked USC over Notre Dame, which was an absolute blowout. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 3 picks off Caleb Williams, who I'll talk a little bit about him later because as a Bears fan, I'm forced to think about the future, but he had a really, really bad game. It wasn't USC's defense that screwed him up this time. He also picked North Carolina over Miami. North Carolina, a very underrated, undefeated team that has just entered the top 10. It'll be interesting to see how they do the rest of the season. And there's one more game. I don't know why I can't remember what it was. Why can't I remember who played? Crap.
Well, we could go back to it later.
We could go back.
We could go back to it later.
Oh, no, I remember. I remember now. Oregon State. He picked them to beat UCLA. My Beavers. Him and I are both pretty high on Oregon State. The Oregon State Beavers, they still have one loss. So they're still in it technically for the Pac-12 championship, but with how good that conference is, especially at the top with Washington and Oregon, it's going to be tough. Let's go on to this week. We'll start at the top. Cold likes to save the best game for last, but I think we're just going to lead it off today because it's going to lead off your day if you're a college football fan on Saturday. You can watch this before you go to the SIU game, which starts at 2. Penn State at Ohio State in Columbus. I don't know if you knew this, but I am an Ohio State fan.
Oh,
so I will
really?
give my opinion before I get Cole's pick. But even before I give my opinion, Stat Boy Joey, give me a stat.
So, the stat this week for Penn State and Ohio State. Penn State head coach James Franklin is 7-2 against the spread against Ohio State in his career.
Yes, I used this same statistic last year when these two teams played. Penn State covered. They're the only team in the last really decade that every single year they find a way to compete with Ohio State. Now, obviously, Michigan's gotten better over the last couple of years, but forever it's been Penn State. And even though they haven't really been able to turn it into a win in a long time, they still keep it close. I think the key to the game is which quarterback doesn't make the big mistake, and that's kind of obvious. But these are two quarterbacks who everyone around the country is trying to find out, is this guy for real? Because they've both shown flashes, but they've also both had some weirdly uncharacteristically bad moments. Like Drew Aller for Penn State, they just don't throw the ball down the field. I think they've had one. It's some crazy stat, like one completion of over 30 yards, and this is a top 10 team we're talking about. Kyle McCord for Ohio State, it just seems he's kind of a statue. I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of him.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really not.
Okay.
Cole's opinion, though, he says both teams feature turnarounds at quarterback. Maybe he means something different. I'm not sure. Ohio State is lucky they get this team at home. If this was at Penn State, it wouldn't even be a question for old Cole Daly. That's
Old Cole Daly.
Old Cole Daly. That's how he wrote it. However, Ohio State gets lucky with the scheduling and takes the home W in this one. I'm surprised he picked Ohio State, honestly. I think this is going to be a really, really low-scoring game. Who does that favor? I'm not really sure. I guess I'm going to say Ohio State because at the end of the day, they are more talented. They've got Marvin Harrison Jr., really, really talented wide receiver. Hopefully, Travion Henderson, our starting running back, can come back. Because if he does, I think we're a shoo-in to win this game, honestly. So, game number 2, Tennessee at Alabama. Both of these teams have one loss.
I'm going to circle.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, circle. Yes,
I will.
Circle Ohio State. This is a game where both of these teams have one loss. One might call this a loser leaves town game.
Loser leaves town.
Like whoever loses it is done for the championship.
Okay, yes.
Because both of these teams, hypothetically, if they were to run the table, they would probably make the playoffs. Tennessee coming off a nice low-scoring win against Texas A&M last year. They've overgone a complete identity change. More of a run-first team. Joe Milton, not as good as everyone thought he was going to be. Alabama lost to Texas in week 2, but they've slowly been stacking together some wins here. Went on the road at A&M last week. This past Saturday against Arkansas, though, they only won 24-21, a game that they probably could have lost easily. They were up by 18, 24-6, and then the Razorbacks stormed back in the game. Alabama did get the stop, though, at the end of the game. And on that note, I would probably pick Alabama to win.
Okay.
However, Cole Daly has not been super impressed by either of these teams, but let's not overcomplicate it. Again, when I'm reading this is exactly what he wrote. I'd be shocked if Heupel gets Saban 2 years in a row. Not happening. The Tide will be out for blood. What do the stats say about this?
The stats talk about Nick Saban. Nick Saban has covered over 50% of the time against ranked opponents after a win as the home team. As a favorite, Excuse me, I think the commas are messing me up here.
Read it like a list.
Okay, Nick Saban has covered over 50% of the time against ranked opponents after a win as the home team, as a home favorite, and in conference games, all of which apply here.
Yes.
My goodness, that was a whirlwind.
A lot of stats. I mean, even if you're not a college football fan, you know that Nick Saban and Alabama have been the dominant team for a long time. Half of the NFL is basically Alabama players. And so with that, Cole Daly is going to pick Alabama to win this game. On to game number 3, Duke at Florida State. Now, this game a couple weeks ago probably would have had a lot more juice than it does now. The only reason it doesn't is because Riley Leonard, the really good quarterback at Duke, has been shaken up a little bit. Will he be fully healthy? I'm not sure. I think I would give the edge to Florida State. They're about a 2-touchdown favorite right now. Probably going to be a top 4 team at the end of the season. I don't really see any team in the ACC besides maybe North Carolina that could compete with them. But hey, I mean, crazier things have happened, and they've shown some weakness at times. According to Cole Daly, Duke's defense versus FSU's stellar offensive attack. Honestly, I think this one is closer than people think. Duke has the defense to keep this one tight, and 2 big plays could change the game. That being said, give me FSU at home. But Joey, is there a stat that may go against Cole Daly?
I'll wait to circle it.
Wait to circle.
So there is a stat that may go against Cole Daly's pick. Duke head coach Mike Elko is 8-2 against the spread in conference games over the last 2 seasons, the best in the ACC.
Interesting. I should mention, too, I forgot to mention this at the top. The Stats had their first undefeated week of the season last week. They went 3-0-1.
Oh, my goodness. That's a comeback.
To bring their record to 8-19-1. And they had been terrible, but they did really well last week, so hats off to the Stats.
I'm kind of hoping Florida State wins this just so I can see them break the rock. I saw a video of them breaking the rock after a win.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
They have like a tradition or something
I must
like
be making fun of Clemson, who touches the rock at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know. Utah at USC is our final game, Pac-12 night game in the LA Coliseum, where the USC Trojans play, and we talked about the Trojans earlier. They laid an egg last week against Notre Dame. Caleb Williams had his worst game in a college uniform. Kyle Whittingham is the spread god, and Joey, I think I wrote a few things in there about just how good Kyle Whittingham, the coach of Utah, is.
Kyle Whittingham, aka the spread god, is the best in the Pac-12 since he took over at Utah at covering the spread in these categories. Overall as an underdog, 61%. As a road underdog, 61%. And with equal rest, 56%. All of which apply here.
Interesting. I really don't know what to do about this game because Utah all year has been hindered by the fact that their quarterback, Cam Rising, hasn't played. Even if he does play, there's no guarantee he's healthy. But that being said, against USC, a team that, we say couldn't stop a nosebleed. This team, they had their best game against Notre Dame last week, and that doesn't mean they were good. They just had their best game. Caleb Williams was so bad that Notre Dame really didn't even need to play offense. They could have just won just by playing with their defense. I would probably go USC barely here in a really weird, ugly game. A couple weeks ago, I said that the Duke-Notre Dame game, which I was completely wrong on this, but I thought it was going to be a blowout either way because both teams were coming off really emotional games. I kind of feel that way about this one personally, that it's going to be a blowout regardless who wins because Utah's defense is incredible. USC might just be going off the rails now, but if they do get it back on track, they're probably going to score 30, 40 points, and Utah without an offense is not going to be able to score. Cole Daly, in his first road team, he's going to pick to win this week. Let me rephrase that. Cole Daly is Cole Daly is picking a road team. He's picked all home teams so far. He is going to go with the Utah Utes. He's very, very down on the USC Trojans. And he says Kyle Whittingham destroyed Lincoln Riley the last time these two matched up, and that's true. And I expect nothing to change. Notre Dame exposed a lot of Williams' weaknesses, and I expect Utah to do the very same. Utah and Notre Dame are very similar, which doesn't make it neat. Goodness. I'm like burping. I'm going to restart that. Kyle Whittingham destroyed Lincoln Riley the last time these two matched up, and I expect nothing to change. Notre Dame exposed a lot of Williams' weaknesses, and I expect Utah to do the very same. Utah and Notre Dame are very similar, which doesn't make it easy on an overrated USC team. So Cole is going with the Utah Utes. I like all those picks except for the last one. I think it's going to be a home team week.
I was just about to say, do we really think Caleb Williams is going to have 2 weeks in a row, two down weeks in a row? Down bad.
Down. Well, he is down bad.
Yeah.
Did you see, by the way, there was this, I mean, we'll talk about him later, but there was a story that whoever he gets drafted by, he wants like ownership in the team.
I have heard this.
That's ridiculous.
I don't know why anybody would think that they're going to get that as a number one pick.
Which I'm pretty sure it's illegal anyway, because I think Aaron Rodgers tried to do the same thing with the Jets.
Yeah, something like that.
But either way, let's move on to another sport that is bringing me a lot of joy right now. I don't know about you, Joey.
It's bringing me a lot of joy right now, too. And I kind of want to start off with a take talking about how much I do love baseball in general. And I wrote it last in here. In general, I love playoff baseball. I love baseball in general. And I think that the playoff format, the hot topic this week has been to talk about the playoff format. But I just think we need more 7-game series in the playoffs. But my complaint isn't the same as what the popular take has been. A lot of people have been trying to make the Phillies win over the Braves and the Rangers win over the Orioles as like a fraud series win, as it's such a long season, and to rely on just the short couple of games in a series to decide the fate of their season is just wrong. That's what people are saying. Now, I think in a way I agree to that to an extent, although I just think, I don't know how you feel, but this is how I think. Bam, playoff baseball starts, and it's like, my goodness, I'm so excited playoff baseball is here. And then not one day later, you think, man, or at least one team is thinking, man, our season could be done with right after playoff baseball starts.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. Some people might think of that as a good thing. I don't like that personally. I want there to be more games. I want there to be more of this intense atmosphere at games like we saw with this series with the Phillies and the Braves. I just want more of this good product that I think they're putting out, especially this year with the improvements that baseball has put out. And to just, I don't know, to the point that a lot of people are talking about, to let 3 games decide an entire season, I just think that's wrong for a team as well as the Braves, I guess. So, and it would also validate the series win more for these teams like the Phillies and the Rangers against, the Orioles and some of these top-tier teams in the MLB. Jkruse, I want to hear your take on it, but I'm not sure if you're necessarily agreeing with me or not, because it sounded like when I brought it up to you, you needed some time to think about it.
Yeah, I'll give my big take on it at the very end of the show in the What We Learned segment, so there's a little sneak peek there.
Okay.
The problem, just commenting on what you said, the problem I think with what you put out, which in a perfect world, I would love to see that. I mean, more baseball, right? Maybe the wild card is a 5-game series, and then every series after that is at least 7. You know what I mean? The problem you run into is the sport would then run into November, like deep into November. We're talking middle to even potentially late November, depending on how many games you add. Again, I like the idea, but I just don't know that is really realistic. I think what we got is about as good as you're going to get in terms of amount of games, honestly, because I don't think the players would agree to anything else. Because if you're going to do that, here's what I would say. If you're going to do that, you have to then shorten the regular season, I think.
I was just about to say, maybe
you then have to shorten the regular season, and that's something I've never been a fan of. But
even by 10 games, 12 games, make it 150?
I mean, maybe a 12, 150, that would be fine. But I personally like where the sport is at, and I'll echo that later. But I do see what you're saying, and I think these teams, a lot of it, what it's come down to, and you're seeing this in these series is that, and it's true in other sports, is that whatever team is hot going into the playoffs is going to be the team that wins.
Yes.
It's not more or less the team that has the best record, the team that has the most good series wins, right? It's whatever team is hot. And so that's kind of how sports are set up to be, though, right? I mean, once you get toward the end of the season, you should be playing your best ball. You can't peak early. So that's what I would say. That's one part of what I would say to the people who don't like the current format and are just really mad that we're not seeing the Dodgers and Braves. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like teams should be rewarded for peaking at the right time, but that's just my opinion.
No, I totally agree. And I was saying my take in a sense of I also still believe that the Rangers would have won their series against the Orioles if it was a 7 games. And I still believe that the Phillies would have beat the Braves if it was 7 games. So, I don't know. I agree with both sides, I guess. Do you find yourself needing more playoff baseball, however?
Not really. And the only reason I say that is look where we came from. We came from 1 game wild card.
True.
On each side. Now we're getting a minimum of 4 games on each side.
We also had 2 less teams in the
playoffs
too.
And you look at last year's division series, right? Let's go back just 1 year. The first year that we had this outside of the COVID year, we had the Phillies swept the Cardinals. Padres Mets went to 3 games. It was a great series, right? Mariners came back in a crazy game 2 against the Blue Jays. And then it was, who was the other team? It was the Guardians who beat the Rays. So, I mean, we had some really, really good games last year. I think the problem with this year is that the games have been a lot more lopsided just for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Like, as a Rangers guy, that first series against the Rays felt like it didn't even happen because they just blew them out both times. And so I think this is just kind of a weird year in terms of the teams that are winning, where they were seeded, and how much they're winning by. The teams are just being a lot more dominant than we're used to.
Yeah, and I think this is also an emphasis on a great starting pitching. Yeah. And I think that's already what baseball is about anyways. That should be your number one priority.
Yep.
Because those guys are going to give you multiple innings of work. Yep. Multiple innings of hopefully shutout work, 1-run work, 2-run work, whatever it is. So I guess at the moment I like the emphasis on great starting pitching. At least your top 3 guys need to be some really good aces.
Yeah.
If we did make it 7-game series, it would put more of an emphasis on having a deeper starting rotation. So it's just an interesting take, but I think this is just hot right now because Braves fans are really mad about their series loss. And I want to say Orioles fans, but I feel like there's not as many of those.
Besides my brother.
Oh, besides Jkruse's brother. How could I forget? My bad. My apologies. But yeah, this is just a hot take a hot topic that I just wanted to mention here on the pod a little bit. But let's get into some of the series that happened this past week, and looking forward to the World Series a little bit here. And I know we had talked about it already, but the Phillies' crazy series against the Braves ended. They beat them in what I would call an upset, but man, it almost like they played a lot better. They played like that shouldn't have been an upset, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Their starting pitching did the job, and they're just the perfect team to have been able to do that against a top-tier offense that we've seen in the past decade or so in the National League in baseball. So that was an extremely exciting series to watch, an extremely exciting upset, and I think now we have to mention that the Phillies' home field advantage is something real. Yeah. Because I think that really affected the Braves in this series. I also want to point out, just in general, it seemed like they not only overpowered the Braves offense, but they were smart about how they attacked some of their lineup too.
Yeah.
I want to just shout out I don't know if it's necessarily the catchers and the pitchers that were talking together about how to attack some of these hitters, or if there was a pitching staff, but just overall that whole effort by the Phillies pitching staff was tremendous against this Braves offense. So to be able to do that, I don't know how I would love to pick them to be World Series champions right now. I don't know if I can decide a World Series champion right now.
I will. I will decide the Phillies are going to win the World Series.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. I mean,
yeah,
I like it.
They're going to win the World Series.
They're the perfect team to do it right now because they're complete everywhere.
They are complete everywhere.
And they have the momentum. So why not, I guess. You know what? Screw it. I'll pick the Phillies to win the World Series.
There you
too.
go.
Why not?
There
I'm
you
just
go.
going to say it. I really wanted to, but I didn't want to seem like I was, speaking too soon or whatever. But, man, my goodness, they've also shown that you need to pay some of these stars, too. Like Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper and even Nicholas Castellanos, 4 home runs in 2 days.
Crazy.
My goodness, watch out for your loved ones there.
His son gets to watch all his games, too. Have you seen those clips?
Yes.
His son's his first row right next to the dugout. Liam is his name.
He gets to point to his son after every home run. What just a beautiful moment to be able to have that in the playoffs, too.
Yeah. Speaking of home runs, I have one thing to say about the Phillies. I heard an interesting note when I was watching a Cubs game earlier this year. And our great play-by-play announcer, John Shambi, he cited he was talking with Joe Girardi, who is now working for the Cubs. He was the great Yankees manager for a long time. And I think about this when I think about the Phillies. He mentioned that conventional wisdom would be you don't want to try for home runs. You want to try for more contact, right?
Right.
But now we've entered this world of launch angle and just hitting more home runs, right? There was a study done by Baseball Prospectus that looked at like the last 20 to 30 years of teams that made the playoffs. The teams that made the playoffs that relied more on the home run were actually more successful in the playoffs because even if they didn't score as many runs, they were still hitting homers. And if you can't hit homers, most likely, you have obviously a worse chance at scoring runs, especially in the playoffs against great pitching. Like you might face a great pitcher, like the Phillies are facing Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Well, they still hit homers. It's not like they broke the scoreboard off against those guys. They did against the bullpen, but not those guys. And that's all they really needed because they're pitching on the other side. The Diamondbacks are not a home run hitting team at all. They're more of a speed, contact, base running type team, which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a lot harder to win if you can't lift the ball and slug the ball. So I just thought that was interesting. I figured I'd throw that in.
No, I love that take. I love that you brought it up. It makes total sense because, if every great pitcher is going to hang a curveball every once in a while or leave a fastball in the middle that, just somebody's going to catch a hold of to get a homer off of.
Yeah.
And if you have the right power in your lineup, that's easy run right there. And if they give up a walk the batter before or even 2 batters before, that's 3 runs right there.
Yep.
Just because of one bad pitch.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense, but also that makes me wonder, the Brewers and the Twins are both teams that really relied on the home run ball this year.
Yeah.
Obviously they're out of it, but maybe that's a sign as to how they did so much better than the rest of their division who wasn't the greatest, Cubs included as well. So.
I would say those 2 teams' problem is they rely on the home run, but they don't have enough home run hitters.
True.
Like they hit a lot of home runs, but they don't have enough like 30, 40 home run guys on their team that in a playoff series could, pull through.
No,
so
totally.
That's just the way that they do things. I don't think that means they're like a great slugging offense though. Right. They're clearly not.
No.
We knew that the whole time too.
Talking about where we're at with the series right now, the Phillies are up 2-0 on the Braves. Braves. I kept talking about the Braves.
All right.
On the Diamondbacks. And I believe they go back to Arizona tomorrow night.
Yes, tomorrow night. Yes.
Tomorrow night
Thursday
they go back to Arizona. And they're going to have Ranger Suarez start, who I think is one of the he's one of the more underrated starters in the league. He's not their ace, of course. He's not one of Zach Gallen. Zach Wheeler.
Zach Wheeler, yep.
Or Aaron Nola. They're 2 aces. But I would say he could be an ace on a lot of teams in this league.
Yeah.
He has ace type of stuff. So I think he's going to get them to a 3-0 lead. And, at that point, they just have to win 1 out of the next 4. I don't think they'll, give up a 3-0 lead on the Diamondbacks. So I feel like as long as they win tomorrow night with Ranger Suarez, who I feel confident in, they'll have that in the bag. They're going to the World Series. I love the Diamondbacks, but they're not going to be able to beat, as inexperienced as they are in the playoffs, they're not going to be able to beat this Phillies team, who seems perfect for a World Series championship this year. Let's move on to the Rangers and Astros.
Speaking of
Rangers. The Rangers starters so far have kind of led their way. They shut out the Astros in Game 1. That doesn't really happen a lot with the Astros, and that was in Houston.
In Houston,
yeah.
So especially there.
I mean, they even had their trash cans to lead the way, and that couldn't even stop their starting pitching. Getting shut out in Game 1 definitely doesn't help, and then they lost Game 2 by a run. Astros made a good comeback in Game 2, just fell short. It seems like anytime Aroldis Chapman comes out to the mound, it's like an automatic one run at least.
Yep.
Whether it's a homer or just, two batters get a double there or something.
Yeah.
I want to know what his slugging percentage is on the year that he's allowed.
It has to be the highest of his career for sure.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
This Texas lineup hasn't really played the greatest, but they've gotten the job done to get to a 2-0 series lead. Tonight, though, Mad Max.
He's back. We told you he might be back.
I know. We've been talking about this a little bit, and I don't know. I love seeing him pitch and play. He's a role model for some of these young pitchers, but I'm terrified that this is the point where the Astros grab some momentum here. Is Max going to be rusty coming back?
Yeah, I don't know.
How many times have we seen Max come off of injury, be rusty, or come off a little bit of a stunt on the IL, just in general, and be rusty?
You have to hope at least that it's. We've talked about rest versus rust all the time, right? You have to hope they didn't rush him back either. We'll know. I mean, we won't know. We'll have to see when the game plays out. I kind of have the same weird feeling that you do. Like, it seems like everything is about to go the Rangers' way. They got Mad Max coming back. Game 3, chance to go up 3-0. And that would be where the Houston Astros, as they have done for each of the last 7 years, just come out and do what they do, unfortunately. I don't want that to happen. Nobody in the world except for Astros fans wants this to happen, or unless you just really hate the Rangers for some reason. I think all those people are probably Houston Astros fans. So, yeah, I really hope that the Rangers can pull something together in these last couple of games where I know the Astros, they're going to get the big hits. I mean, you just know they are. It's about responding. And the difference, I think, we've talked about how much of a wagon the Phillies have been. The difference between them and the Rangers are just the Rangers they haven't lost a game, which is crazy, and the Phillies have, but they haven't been as dominant, really. It just seems like they have the magic right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the Phillies are just crushing everyone. But, again, the Rangers they just have it for some reason. They get the perfect amount of runs they need every single game. They're going to need a blow-up game where they score 7-8+ runs if they're going to want to win this series versus the Astros at some point.
Who has faced harder competition, the Phillies or the Rangers?
That's a great question.
It's a beautiful question because, I mean, the Phillies have obviously faced the Braves, who are one of the top-tier teams in the last 10 years, and they came out of that one only dropping one game.
Yeah.
But they also played why am I drawing a blank on
Marlins.
The Marlins.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, as we mentioned, that's a series win, but they should have won that.
Yeah.
Now talking about the Rangers, they beat the Rays, who, they're a very, very,
team.
Very good team, very good offensively. And then who did they face in the wild card round?
Orioles.
No, that was the divisional round.
Rangers.
The Rangers
played the Rays in the wild card round.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Orioles
My goodness, I got it backwards. Yeah, so they faced the Orioles in the divisional round, and then in the wild card round is the Rays. So I feel like the overall probably the Rangers.
Because do you think the Rays are better than the Marlins?
Yeah.
Do you think the Astros are better than the D-backs? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess the only advantage, I would say the Braves are probably better than the Orioles, but not by that much. So I'd probably give the slight advantage to the Rangers.
Yeah, slight advantage.
But I think it's weird. I give the slight advantage to the Rangers, but I think the Phillies have played the best team overall in the Braves.
Of course.
So,
that's without question. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think this is shaping up to be a Phillies-Rangers World Series matchup, although I'm terrified of the Astros. I think we've mentioned that multiple times in this podcast, and I feel like everybody is terrified of the Astros in general, where this is the day that the dark side starts to take over. It's the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. I will make a promise that if the Texas Rangers win the World Series, I will buy a Texas Rangers hat, and I will wear it on the podcast for
like
the segment.
World Series championship?
Maybe not a World Series championship hat, but at least like a Rangers hat
a Rangers
to signify my respect for the Texas. Maybe a cowboy hat. Maybe I'll get it because it's Texas. Texas cowboy
Tip
hat.
of the cap. Tip of the cap.
Tip of the cap.
I keep forgetting that this whole series is in Texas too. Cause Houston.
I don't have to travel very far.
Yeah. In general, I don't know. Okay, we're gonna move on to the NFL.
The NFL. We can't do that. That's copyrighted music. Anyway, the NFL. I just want to say, I am 8-1 in my last 9 picks. As you can see on the board, I am up to 12-6. I was once 4-5. I'm 8-1 in my last 9. I'm the hottest picker in the world. 3-0 last week. I picked the Saints to lose to the Texans. Excuse me. Those two guys scowled at me. I rolled when I said the Texans were actually a team with life. And then we had the Cowboys-Chargers game, which one of the wilder games in recent history. Me and Cole both picked the Cowboys. Joey went Chargers for whatever reason.
I thought that game would be close. And
it was. The Chargers also, the NFL is planting fake fans at games.
Oh my God, I saw that.
That is the fakest human alive.
Yeah, but you saw she was on the Pat McAfee show.
How are they able to get her on that quickly? Though?
I have no idea.
How are they able to find her contact information that quickly?
I have no idea, but
that makes me think they rigged it somehow.
Possibly.
I don't know. Somehow I feel like they rigged it. And then the final game last week, or technically it was the first on the board, that we had talked about was the London game, Ravens and Titans. And you and I both picked the Ravens. I don't really remember why we picked the Ravens.
I just didn't believe in the Titans' offense whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, both teams were coming off games that their offense basically lost it for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Ravens beat the Titans. The final London game of the series. Now there is a Germany game. And who's playing in that one?
Oh God.
Is it the Steelers and somebody?
It was like the Patriots and somebody.
Patriots Steelers maybe. Go ahead and look that up real quick. As we get to week 3 again, just updating you on the records. Cole's still in the lead, technically, over 70%, which is really, really good. 13-5, 12-6, 66%, and Joey all the way down there at 10-8. But again, it's a long season. You saw how quickly I was able to come back. So we're not even halfway through the season yet, and there's still a long way to go. So Joey can easily get back in this race. The first game, did you ever find the Germany game, by the way?
I did. There's 2 of them.
Those 2 of them.
There's the Dolphins versus the Chiefs.
That will be a great game.
Point. I think that will be a beautiful game. And then the Colts and Patriots. That might be another CTB Cole's Turd Bowl for that week.
We'll get to one of those.
Yeah.
We'll get to one of those in just a second. Anthony Richardson being out for the Colts kind of takes all the air out of that one.
Yes.
For sure. Lions at Ravens. Forgot to do state of the team. I'll do the state of the team right now. For my Chicago Bears, who are not on the slate this week. This past week was it was the most Bears thing ever. When you have a little bit of momentum on the offensive side of the ball, and this is why I've said, even though we were playing well the last 2 weeks, Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy are not, though they're not exempt from any criticism just because we had 2 good weeks of offense, right? Luke Getsy and the Bears offense were so unprepared. They looked like they had never seen a blitz before, because that's basically all the Vikings do. I think I saw a stat, they blitz over 54% of the time, which basically means they don't have a great defense. They just try to send so many guys at you that you can't defend it. There was the one play that really irked me. I believe it was either 12-6 or the game was tied and the Bears had the ball inside Vikings territory. We put a running back, I believe it was Deontay Foreman or whoever else we had running that day, up against Donnell Hunter of the Vikings, who was one of the best pass rushers in the league, and he just bulldozes through the running back and hits Justin to where Justin has a little flubber of a throw, and the Vikings pick it off and they go back down and they score before the end of the half. I mean, what are you doing?
That's a Joe Barry moment.
That is, well, for the offense, yes.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yes, exactly. That's a great way to put it. I didn't think about it like that. But yes, that's a Joe Barry moment on the Joe Barry and Luke Getsy. I mean, they were on the same staff at one point, weren't they? The Packers guys being elevated to coordinator positions who don't need to be there.
Exactly.
From the Green Bay Packers is just ruining the league, even ruining the Bears somehow in some way. But again, injuries killed us too. I don't know if you probably didn't subject yourself to that awful game, but we were starting Cody Whitehair at center, and he hadn't been starting center all year. It had been Lucas Patrick. When he got hurt against the Commanders, Whitehair came in, and he was making some of the worst snaps I've ever seen, throwing the ball way high. Justin Fields is having to go snatch the ball out of midair. Awful. He was doing that all game on Sunday as well. And I'm like, well, who else are we going to play? I mean, our starting center, Lucas Patrick, is hurt. And then the season dies when Justin Fields dislocates his thumb. We bring in the backup Tyson Bagent. Then Lucas Patrick comes in. It's like, wait. I thought he was hurt. And then all of a sudden we start having good snaps to the quarterback. I'm like, why hasn't he been playing the whole game?
So is this a sign of tanking on purpose?
It may be. And I have an interesting note about Tyson Bagent there. I don't know if you get a chance, like I said, I don't know if you get a chance to see, but Bagent looked like how I think we would look if we had to take a snap in the NFL as a quarterback. Yeah. When he took the snap, he was going, oh, God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
He's never seen a blitz in his life.
Yes, no, he looked scared, like, out of his mind. And I would be, too, especially with those big dudes running at you. But then somehow he makes a couple of just, like, weird throws, and we get a lot of run after catch, go down the field, and we have a chance. We score a touchdown. We get the ball back with a chance to win. And I said this all the time about the Bears' defense. No matter how good or bad they are, if they need to stop to get you the ball back down by a touchdown or less, they will do it. And they did. We got the ball back, and Tyson Bagent tries to throw a deep ball at DJ Moore. And I don't know if the ball just, like, deflated as he was throwing it, but it was just so underthrown, easy pick, and the Vikings win.
The hand of God pushed it.
Yes. And so the Vikings' attempt at tanking, which I think is what they're doing now that Justin Jefferson's out, was thwarted by Tyson Bagent. And to me, I don't really care how long Justin Fields is out. The season's over. We're tanking. And I don't even know if – I've thought this for a while, but what does Caleb Williams do differently that Justin Fields doesn't do? Their strengths are the same. Their strengths are they're incredibly mobile. They both have big arms. But neither of them have proven to this point that they can stand in the pocket and just knife up a defense. Like, that's why C.J. Stroud has been so good, because that's his play style, right? C.J. Stroud is an NFL quarterback. Those two guys are college quarterbacks, at least in their play style, and they can be developed into great NFL quarterbacks. But if Caleb Williams comes to the Bears, we've never developed a quarterback in our lives. So we probably need to go after a quarterback like Drake May for North Carolina, who already plays like a pro style of a game, and he has some mobility too. But that's if we end up drafting a quarterback, which I don't want us to. Obviously, I love Justin, but if we do, I'm at the point where I'd rather Drake May. So that's where I am.
You wouldn't need a top. Oh, I don't know. Where's Drake May going to fall in the draft?
Probably 2.
Number 2, you think?
I mean, it's probably going to go Williams May, 1 and 2, or vice versa. Yeah. I'm hoping that we end up with the top 2 picks because the Panthers are so bad. Mm-hmm. And we trade that first one. Some team desperate for Caleb Williams comes down and gets him. And then we take May at 2, and then we can use that. I mean, this is obviously way in the future. But we're not even halfway through the season. I'm already talking about 2024 draft stuff. So anyway, enough about the Bears. Let's get to the games. Lions at Ravens. Quick state of the team for the Lions. I mean, they're really good. They're really good. Cole should be very, very happy with where his team is at right now. I'm just going to use the same line he put from last week. On cloud 9, can't stop us. That's what they are. And in this game, the Lions and Ravens, he obviously picks his Lions. I wouldn't discourage him from doing so. Joey Bernard, who are you picking in this game? We both picked right on the Ravens last week. Are we going back to the well, or are we switching to the Lions?
I'm switching to the Lions, of course. I mean, I would call the Lions a top 2 team in the NFC right now. At the moment, I would pick them over the Eagles. I mentioned this before the pod.
Interesting.
At the moment. I'm not saying by the end of the season I would pick them over the Eagles. I'm just saying the Eagles haven't really played to their full potential, and the Lions, I think, I remember a take by Cole Daly earlier in the year how Dan Campbell is the guy that you want as a transition guy when you find the new head coach.
Yes.
I think he is the guy. I think he can lead a team like the Lions.
Yeah.
For a while now.
Do you know what they are in their last 14 games, the Lions? Remember they started 1-7 last year.
Yeah, and they finished only losing 2 of their last 9.
1 game. They're 12-2 in their last 14 games.
So
that's crazy.
Utterly ridiculous. And that turnaround makes no sense to me. Like, I don't know. Their defense is obviously much more talented than I ever realized, but man, to start off 1-7 and to bring whatever momentum they had, like, I don't know. just from last year, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, this year, my goodness, to be able to like reset. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. The Lions are just really good.
They are just really good.
They're going to win the division. I said the Green Bay was going to win it a couple weeks ago. I'm obviously wrong by that because of the play of Jordan Love. So,
in a weird way, last week's game against the Bucs, and I didn't watch that full game, Lions-Bucs. Baker Mayfield. I mean, I've never seen a guy miss so many wide open throws in my life. That guy stinks. He stinks. And I could see the Bucs being one of the teams that trades up for Caleb Williams. They have a lot of talent that they could trade up for. You know what I mean? Like
somebody on defense.
Exactly. And all their star talent is getting older now. Like how much longer is Mike Evans going to be really, really good? Mm-hmm. How much longer is Godwin going to be really, really good? I mean, you know, a lot of guys on the defense as well, Levante David, Shaq Barrett. Like, you're going to want to get rid of these guys so that you can get, you know, your next cornerstone. Right. Because of how bad Baker Mayfield was last week, where I think the Bucs could have scored more, I'm actually going to go Ravens in this game. Okay. I think the Ravens will be able to take advantage. Now, weirdly, again, this is probably the wrong team to say this about with their receiving problems, but I think the Ravens will be able to control the game, be more of a running style, so Aiden Hutchinson isn't able to dominate through the pass game. So taking him out of that, I think, is going to be key for the Ravens, and I think they're going to get the win. It's also at home as well, so that's another reason I picked the Ravens. Now, to a game that you already see it on the screen. Normally, we try to pick the 3 biggest games of the week, right? No game really stuck out to me. So in honor of Cole Daly, this week's Cole's Turd Bowl of the week, the Packers at Broncos. The combined record of these teams is 3-8, which it doesn't sound that bad, but it's the worst of any game this week by far. This is going to be a really bad game. Did you know that the Broncos are favored?
I did not know that. Are you kidding me?
I believe that. Let me double check that right now. That's so insulting to me. But the Broncos are favored in this game. Now Cole and Joey, I assume Joey is going to say that that's crap, but Cole has picked the Packers in this game. He's going with both NFC North squads. Joey, I assume you're going to follow suit.
Are we forgetting that Green Bay's coming off of a bye, and they're like historically better on a bye?
Okay, it has crossed. Green Bay is now favored by 1.
Okay.
It started out as Broncos by 1. It's now probably because everyone thinks the Packers are going to win. It's crossed over to Green Bay now. But still, only 1 point against the Denver Broncos?
Well, okay, it is in Denver. I know the last time we played the Broncos in Denver, I think they had Peyton Manning. We got crushed like 37.
Oh man, that was a long time ago then.
Yeah, remember it's like every 4 years we play the AFC divisions, and then it goes back and forth on who's home, who's away. So that was a long time. Not that really has anything to do with this game, because now they have Russell Wilson and they're in a completely different team, of course. I mean, I just think the Packers off of a rest. If there's a defense that they can at least get some confidence with their receivers again, with Jordan Love, it's this defense that they play. I like Aaron Jones to be able to come back this week since we had the bye. Although I almost don't want him to, because I think we might be able to win without him.
Maybe.
To be honest, I don't know. Maybe I'm having too much confidence in us being able to win off of a bye, but I think that's the biggest factor here with Green Bay being able to pull out a win.
I'm gonna go Broncos.
Yeah, and I really want to hear why. I'm like insulted that the odds are this close.
That's why I'm gonna pick the Broncos, because I think the people who make these odds are a lot smarter than I am, and whenever they do something that seems drastic, you just gotta believe them. You just have to put your blind faith in people that are smarter than me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick the Broncos to win, literally based on nothing else. I guess if I were to say one thing, I genuinely think that the Packers offense, led by Jordan Love, stinks.
Yeah.
And we did see the Broncos, as bad as their defense has been, they did kind of hold the Kansas City Chiefs down a little bit. Weirdly. Right? They only held them to under 20 points. They may have turned a corner. Maybe.
Well, yeah. So
I'm not saying they have.
They're also coming off of like a mini bye, too.
Yes.
So Green Bay's coming off of – they played the Monday night game. They played and then they have the bye. And then they played the Thursday night game. So I guess it's not that much of an advantage.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Broncos win this one 10-6, and the touchdown comes off
10-6,
and the touchdown comes off a pick six, or a special teams touchdown. I don't know.
I am so mad at you right now.
I can't. Oh gosh, now I want the Broncos to win even more. Final game of the week, a game that we're probably going to be one of the best games of the season. Dolphins at Eagles, a game that will probably have a lot more points scored than Packers Broncos. A game that features two teams with only one loss. Now the Eagles, they blew that game against the Jets. I mean, they had the lead the whole time. Now granted, their offense was struggling, but the Jets have a really good defense. Even without Sauce Gardner, they still have a really good foundation. Jalen Hurts makes one of the very few mistakes he's made over the last couple of years. Did you know, though, by the way, this year he has 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions?
Really?
Yeah. I found that interesting.
But 7 passing touchdowns.
Yes. So he probably has a lot of rushing touchdowns based on the tush push.
The tush push.
But,
yep.
Yeah, so maybe there's – I mean, that's still a lot of picks, though, right? Mm-hmm. Through 6 games?
I would agree.
So Jalen Hurts looks like he's struggling a little bit. The Dolphins' defense at times has been able to be had. Even the Broncos scored. I mean, they scored 20, and for how bad the Broncos' offense is, I mean, that's kind of an accomplishment, right? The Chargers scored a lot on the Dolphins. Obviously, the Bills put up 48 on them. So I'm going to look at this as a get-right game for the Eagles. I think they're going to be pretty mad about the way that Jets game ended, and they're going to come out. And I think they're going to beat the Dolphins. I really do, honestly. This could be, I'm putting this out there, and if this happens, you can blame me. This might be a Tua concussion game.
Oh, wow.
And I would never wish that on anyone, but it's a primetime game. Remember, most of them came in primetime games, right? Mm-hmm. I have a bad feeling that this, as good as the Dolphins have been, this might be where, and again, I'm not saying it's going to be a Tua concussion, but I just have a bad feeling that this is where the Dolphins season might go a little off track. I just have a weird feeling that something bad is going to happen to the Dolphins. I don't know why. I don't want to wish this on them because outside of the Bears, they're probably my favorite team. But I don't know. I'm going to go Eagles, and Cole Daly agrees with me on this one. Joey, what about you?
I am really, really considering switching.
Uh-oh. Switching from what to what?
Well, okay. My pick was going to be Dolphins, but just thinking of everything spells right for an Eagles get-right game. Your argument makes sense to me. I think I'm still going to go Dolphins. In a weird way, I think this is the game where it's like we realize that the Eagles might not be the powerhouse that we thought they were going to be this year, just in general. And it's like, okay, they're not as good as the Super Bowl appearance team as last year. I would say it's going to be pretty high scoring because I mean, obviously you love the Dolphins offense too.
Yeah. Oh, I do.
So
I love it.
If the Eagles defensive line does what they normally do, then they should have this game, but I feel like they've underperformed this year. So I'm gonna take the Dolphins.
Over under 5.5 times the term tush push is used on the Sunday night broadcast.
Over.
By how much?
1. It'll be close.
6.
Yeah.
6 times. I mean, I feel like I hear it at least 8 or 9 times a week when there's not games happening. So,
right. And it's in Philly too. So
it is in Philly. So just to recap for this week, they are both going with the Lions at the Ravens. In the Turd Bowl, they're also both going with the Packers against the Broncos. I'm taking the Broncos, and Joey, for whatever reason, is very mad at me for that pick. But you know what? That'll just make the Broncos win even sweeter, right? I'm hot right now, okay? So that means they're probably going to win. And then the Dolphins and the Eagles. Me and Cole like the Eagles. Joey is going to stick with the Dolphins, right?
Sticking with the Dolphins.
Okay, you're not going to switch.
No.
So finally, Joey, take us home. What did we learn this week? For Cole, I wrote down, take your medicine, man. Come on. We need you back.
Dude.
We need you back.
We need you, man. The podcast is much better with you here.
So I hope he learned that.
Yeah.
Joey, what did you learn?
Definitely learned. I learned, and I think you probably learned this too. And again, like you've mentioned, a lot of the things that we talk about on What You Learn are things that we know but just get reiterated throughout different things. I learned that the Chicago Cubs should have paid for Nicholas Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber. They should have paid the money a couple off seasons ago when those guys turned free agents, and they were worth it. And the Phillies are showing us that, hey, you guys were stupid as hell.
Yeah, they were. Now you got me pissed off. No, I'm mad.
I'm mad too. Extremely mad.
The one that honestly hurts more than the other is Castellanos.
Oh, yeah.
Because Kyle Schwarber,
he made sense.
I know we talked about it, like in the playoffs, he hits a bunch of homers, but he still hits like 172 every year. Castellanos has at least put up some, like, he almost put up an MVP season, didn't he, a couple years ago?
Yeah, he did. And Castellanos loved playing for the Cubs.
Oh, yeah.
And he vocalized that everywhere he went. So why wouldn't they do it?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He was our best player in the second half of 2019. Yeah. By far.
By far.
Probably my favorite player on the Cubs that didn't last more than a year.
I was really considering getting a Castellanos jersey that, like, second half of the season. Because I was thinking we were going to end up in the playoffs, and then we choked. I think Craig Kimbrell screwed up the last series against the Cardinals that year, whatever it was. But, yeah, Castellanos, Schwarby, I miss you guys so much.
I hope we don't make the same mistake with Cody Bellinger.
We better not.
Probably going to, too.
I might rip up on my...
Now Scott Boras is his agent. You know the whole thing with Scott Boras. Like, he's Carlos Correa's agent, too.
Well, and...
He gets, like, his players get... They only go to, like, high-market teams, which we are a high-market team, but we don't like to spend that much.
I also thought he was a big lobbyist for the Dodgers just in general. So
probably, I'm sure. Because they just can't... The Dodgers just give the most money.
Yeah.
Them and the Yankees. So,
yeah.
We're probably going to fumble the bag again. And I'm going to be so sad, because you just mentioned you were going to buy a Nick Castellanos jersey. If the Cubs re-sign Cody Bellinger, said it with the Rangers hat earlier, I will come on this podcast with the Cody Bellinger jersey on that I don't yet have, but I want to get one. I want to spend the money on a Cody Bellinger jersey, please, because he was my favorite player from the team last year. Obviously, I mean, he was our best player at times. So,
well, you vocalized that he was your favorite player even before he started going off in like June, May.
Yes,
well, it was really second half, but. Yeah,
it was just the weird allure of seeing a player like him who used to be an MVP in a Cubs uniform. Like the same thing happened with me in Swanson too at the beginning. It's like, wow, that guy plays for the Cubs.
It was like
that's so weird.
It was like seeing those crazy Instagram jersey swap things.
Yes,
just in real life.
Like Dennis Rodman on the Lakers.
Oh yes.
Like that doesn't make any sense, but it happened.
It did.
Yeah,
it happened.
It happened. The thing I learned this week. I mentioned earlier, I teased it with my take on the MLB playoff format. It's not really a take on the format, but it's a take on the people that have been complaining about it this weekend. And it's not people like you, what you were saying. It's mostly Braves and Dodgers fans and people who wanted the Orioles to be good that are complaining that the format does not allow for teams to continue momentum when the season ends, right? Well, my only question with that would be, how are the Astros in the ALCS then? Because they fought hard to win the division to get that bye, and they're in the ALCS because of it. The Rangers, I remember Bruce Bochy, their manager, said like they were really disappointed that they didn't win the division, right? So that would mean they want the bye. So teams want the bye. I don't think you're not gonna see teams purposely not try to get the top two seeds. No, you want that for rest, right? I think what people are missing here. And people missed this during the NCAA tournament last year, too. People lie about saying they want underdogs to win in sports. They don't want underdogs to win because as much as people love to see their favorite teams play, they love to hate the teams they don't like even more. Right? Does that make sense?
I would agree.
Like, people wanted to see the Dodgers move on, like, because they wanted to watch the Dodgers lose in, like, the NLCS, but they lost too early, right? Same thing with me and LeBron James. Like, I have not been a fan of LeBron James my whole life. But the last 3 or 4 years when his teams haven't been as good, haven't advanced as far, I haven't been paying attention as much. It's just because I don't really have anything to watch. And also the Bulls suck. But I haven't been able to watch anything that like plays with my emotions, right? And in the NCAA tournament this past year, you didn't see Duke or Kentucky or Kansas or any of these teams we're used to watching move on, and people didn't watch the tournament as much, right? People love to hate, but those same people would say, yeah, but I wish the underdogs won more. Like the year before, in the 2022 Final Four, we had North Carolina, Kansas, Duke, and Villanova, which is like the blue blood central, right? I mean, all the teams that everyone knows about. So I just think people need to stop saying that they want more parity in sports and they want underdogs to win, because when the underdogs do win, you then complain about the format and how the good teams don't win enough. You want to look at the reason why the Braves and Dodgers didn't move on. You mentioned it earlier. You can chalk it up to the fact that their starting pitching staffs weren't healthy. The Dodgers started Clayton Kershaw in Game 1 of the division series, or Game 2, Game 1 or 2. Yeah. He got destroyed. Clayton Kershaw is way past the point where he should be starting Game 1 or 2 of a series anymore. Yeah. And he wouldn't have had the Dodgers pitching staff been healthy. Had Dustin May been healthy, had Walker Buehler been healthy. I mean, both of those guys have been out for a really, really long time. You want to point to why teams lose, that's it.
Do you remember a couple years back, what I think most football fans do, in 2017, when there was a chance that we could have gotten a Eagles-Jags Super Bowl?
Yes.
Or a Vikings-Jags Super Bowl?
Yes.
I think the ratings for that Super Bowl would have been so bad had the Jags actually won that AFC Championship.
I agree.
So your point makes total sense. I almost think of it too in another way. Personally, as a Packers fan against the Bears fan, I want the Bears to do better so that games are more consistent, or competitive is the right word.
Yeah.
And I can have a reason to hate the Bears because I have no reason to hate the Bears other than I've been told for years and years to hate them over a rivalry that really hasn't been a rivalry since I've been watching the Packers play it, as my 9-year-old self randomly chose on a dartboard the Packers to be a fan of. Yeah. That's not actually how I chose the Packers to be a team. Okay. But
9 years old. That would have been the 2010 season. They won the Super Bowl that year. Oh, it's weird how that lines up.
So I guess I would have been 8 years old. I remember watching the Cardinals wild card game the year before.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It was Aaron's second season as a starter.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Interesting. I want the Bears to do better so I can hate on them is my point of all this. I feel some sarcasm.
No, you're right. I'm thinking of an example in my life. Like, for Ohio State football, like, when I first became a fan, the University of Michigan stunk, but, like, that's our rival, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't hate them. The team I hated, quote-unquote, was Michigan State because I had family that liked them, and they were the team that was, like, constantly competing against us. Now, I don't even think about Michigan State on the daily, and Michigan is the team that, you know, they're on the forefront of my mind all the time. So, yeah, I guess it's weird that, yeah, you kind of opened my eyes to that, honestly. Like, people say that they hate teams, they don't want them, like the Cardinals this year for the Cubs, right? Mm-hmm. They stunk this year. I didn't really hate the Cardinals as much as I normally do because
just didn't think
they
about
stunk.
Them.
Yeah. They're not even a thought.
Yeah. Opening Jkruse's eyes.
Can you believe we won like double-digit games more than the Cardinals and didn't make the playoffs?
We played the same amount of games as them.
Like, if you would have told me that we won double-digit games more than the Cardinals, I would have thought we made the playoffs.
Oh yeah,
easily.
But is that more of a sign as to how bad the Cardinals were this year, or is that more?
Probably that.
Yeah,
let's go with that.
And we're gonna end this podcast without Cole Daly. Sadly enough, this has been episode 8. Of the InsiDe Sports podcast. Give us a like on Spotify. Give us a follow. Give us a like on YouTube. I don't know how Cole Daly does. Subscribe.
Follow on Instagram.
Leave a comment. Follow us on Instagram. Do all the social media stuff, basically.
Just search InsiDe Sports.
Just InsiDe Sports Daily Egyptian. You'll find us anywhere here. This has been Joey Bernard, Jkruse, and Cole Daly.
Cole Board.
We will see you next time.